Hey, welcome to this video on the code-first approach. This video is the first in a short series on working with APIs, which I will be expanding over the next few weeks. Let's get started without further ado. There are two main approaches to API development: contract first and code first. Today we'll look at the code first approach using a practical example. What does code first actually mean? In the code first approach, unlike the contract first approach, the API is defined by using source code. This means that I define the API by defining it in a technology that, hopefully, the entire development team understands well. I'll show you this using the example of a REST API. I have a corresponding GitHub repository that I'll link in the description, where you can find all examples shown here by me on YouTube. Here I have a Quarkus application that I created from scratch using an initializer on quarkus.io. In Quarkus you define REST APIs using the microprofile specification. Let's take a simple user management system with typical CRUD endpoints as an example, which can create, update, read and delete users. First, I create a user class that models a user as a record. This record class now directly defines what a user looks like in terms of my API. So let's assume that a user is described by an ID, a name, an email address, and a date of birth. The user in the business domain or in the database may look different. This is only about the data model, how the user looks in terms of the API. To define a method for saving new users, I first create a new class and annotate it with path, which in the microprofile specification represents a REST resource that can be accessed under a specific resource path. I define the individual endpoints using individual methods for saving, reading, and deleting. Here too, you define the individual HTTP methods under which the endpoints are accessible in the code using microprofile annotations. You want to restrict the content type that you accept and return? Again, you define the API in the technology of your choice. In the microprofile world, this is done using the produces and consumes annotations. You can express optional validations on your API data model using the Java validation API, for example. So a small API definition using Quarkus might look something like this at the end. In the Spring world, the same example looks like this. The same data model with the same validation rules using the Java validation API. The same methods, but with slightly different annotations. This illustrates a key characteristic of this approach. You always define the API in the technology in which your API will be implemented, which opens up a whole range of possibilities for defining APIs when you consider how many program languages and frameworks there are out there.